executive because he is advising, is working with the government, right? So he's also part of the executive here. Then you have all those on the top layer, the first layer, the black line outside, all our civil servants. HDB, MOE, MOH, all of them in the civil service, top ranking, the lowest ranking, they're all part of the civil service, including LTA officers. They're enforcement officers, right? So they are part of executive. Then if you move to the second layer, where you see the ministers and parliamentary secretaries, what's the distinction between the outer layer and the second layer? So when you look at the outer layer, they are carrying out the job. The civil service don't make decisions. The decisions will pass or come from the ministries. Where do the ministries get the decision from? Cabinet. Now, a lot of people think that cabinet is same as all PAP politicians. No. Cabinet is formed by the Prime Minister, his inner circles. Those he thinks that will give him good advice will form the cabinet. So if you see the composition of cabinet, there are fewer people here. Cabinet, very important. All important decisions are made by cabinet. Cabinet will decide, okay, maybe I think it's time for us to pass new laws. Ministries can also come up with policies, like Ministry of Law. They always look at how can we reform the penal code, how do we make the laws better. So ministry levels also, you can initiate new laws in parliament. But all eventually report to one person, very important role, which is the Prime Minister. Alright, so this is in general our executive. Then when you look at the composition of parliament here, so we've got members of parliament, and you know we've got these categories. So elected by the largest vote share, these are our ordinary members of parliament. So which means in your GRC, whoever won the most seats, you get to go here. Okay, then of course these NC MPs are declared to be elected, and then you got your nominated MPs. These are all the recent year reforms. These are very different from the English Parliament. English Parliament, you only have your MPs. That is your English Parliament here. So the reason why I've included this diagram to let you know how our composition of Parliament and the composition in UK is different. We only have one house, but in UK there are two houses. The lower chamber and the upper chamber. The lower chamber is House of Commons, members of Parliament elected. The upper chamber is by appointment. So there's some fusion or some changes here to accommodate our local politics. So this is what most Commonwealth countries have done. After independence, although we follow the common law system, we made changes to the compositions according to our local politics and culture. Okay? Then if you look at this last diagram here, this is the separation of powers diagram. You have the executive, judiciary and legislature. The role of the judiciary here is very, very important. Look, I want to talk about this judiciary and executive. Look at the arrow going up, not the dotted ones. The thick line, which go, can you all see my cursor? Can you see my cursor if I move? So can you see this arrow here? Okay, the arrow going up towards the executive, right? So if you can read that, it basically says this judiciary will keep an eye on this executive, monitor the executive on judicial review. If the executive were to abuse powers, you go to the judiciary can basically make declarations that the executive has acted beyond the powers and can order corrective orders. Tell the executive to go and exercise the rightful function. That's the power of the judiciary. Okay? Now, from the executive, I want you to look at the dotted lines going towards the judiciary. In very, very rare circumstances, judges can be removed by the executive, usually when they don't maintain good behavior. There's no independence. When there's accepting bribery. Judges are not supposed to participate in politics. When they participate in politics, usually you don't see any dismissal. Okay? but possible to happen. Then let's talk about executive and legislature. So let's look at the arrow from executive to legislature. So for you to become member of parliament here, you need to stand for elections. And first, you must be a member of parliament before you can even be a minister. How to become a minister? That's by the Prime Minister's discretion. Appointment of ministers come from the Prime Minister here. Okay? But this parliament technically is just a building. You have the executive in parliament. So what parliament would do, parliament will scrutinize the executives by during question time. Ask executives questions. And when I say ask executives questions means, you watch this on MediaCorp, right, all the time? The opposition will ask ministers, government ministers questions. Government ministers will respond, right? That's your question time. The reason why we have question time is to ensure the executive are accountable to the public through parliament. So when I give an answer, I want this answer to go to the public. So it is through parliament I'm answering to the public. Okay? And then when you look at parliament, the legislature and the judiciary here, so usually judges will loyally accept laws made by parliament. Very rare for parliament to make changes to the laws developed by the courts. Quite rare here. Okay? But possible. These three institutions must exist. If these three institutions don't exist, something's wrong with the system. Okay? So you see, this three part is quite similar to UK. We have three. But in terms of functions, they're slightly different. Okay? So that's the common law system in Singapore. Sources of Singapore law. As you know, the sources of Singapore law is largely based on English law. But I want you, can I just do this with you? I'm just going to copy this. Application of English Law Act. You can copy this on your Google link and it will take you to this website. You can see my screen here. Application of English law, right? Now scroll down to section 3 here. Okay? In 1993, Singapore Parliament made an announcement, made law saying this. The common law of England, so far as it was part of Singapore, will before 1993, 12 November, will continue to be part of Singapore law, which means any English law which have already been accepted to be any English common law before 12 November, which has been applied in Singapore, those law will remain to be Singapore law. So which means any English law applied or passed after 12 November 1993 will not be part of Singapore law. So Singapore made that, saying that we will start to develop our own laws. All right? And then besides that, what about the statute laws? Can you please refer to, I think it is the first schedule. Okay. If you were to click on the first schedule of this legislation towards the end, they have clearly, in this legislation, identified what are the English laws, Act of Parliament. Section 3 governs common law, right? What about the English Acts of Parliament which applied in Singapore before 1993? They only selected some and said some will continue to apply. And you can see here. The Maritime Convention Act 1911, the whole act applies. The Straits Settlements, remember? The whole act still applies. Then, mercantile law, only Section 3 and Section 5 applies. The rest of the legislation does not apply. So only these laws applies in Singapore. These are all English Acts of Parliament. the other English Acts of Parliament is not part of Singapore law. So this declaration, or rather this clarity, to what extent will English law apply, has been clearly declared through this legislation. Okay, so that is with regard to the application of English law post 1965. So as you can see, cases like Spandex Engineering, these cases, we have to today not follow the English case for duty of care. We must apply this case in our Singapore court to establish duty of care. Our Singapore courts, let's talk about our Singapore courts. I think by now all of you know, we do not have a Supreme Court per se. It's a building which houses two courts, Court of Appeal and High Court. Okay? Now you answer this question, all right? Which is the highest court in Singapore? Let's see who's the keyboard warrior can type so fast. Come on, you're typing slowly. Yeah. Which is the highest court in Singapore? Correct. Jinling is right, Azira is right, Rizwan is right. The Court of Appeal is the highest court in Singapore. Okay? There is no court above the Court of Appeal. So do you realize that all these capital punishment cases, the highest court it goes to is the appeal court. From there, it goes to the presidential pardon, right? So Supreme Court is a building, houses two courts here. Okay? So in terms of ranking, below the Court of Appeal, we have the High Court. The state courts are also made up of the following courts and tribunal. So the state courts are the lower courts which will not hear very serious cases. High Court in Singapore is also a little special because High Court has dual functions. First, High Court can also hear appeal cases. High Court can also hear cases for the first time. That means a trial, a very serious criminal case can go to the High Court for the first time. Okay? Then in terms of ranking, for state courts, district, magistrate, coroners, small claims, community, employment. These courts have got their own respective functions and jurisdiction here, all right? So of course, employment tribunal will hear employment matters, right? Small claims tribunal will only hear civil matters. You don't need lawyer, you can just present your case. Small claims tribunal, I think recently they made changes. Maximum damages that you can claim in small claims tribunal is going to be $20,000. Okay? So that's the state courts here. Correct, below $20,000. Okay, now we're coming to an end to this session here. Okay? So what I've explained to you thus far, number one, this is like a tick the box. You must know what is the meaning of legal system. This is something that we did last week. We spoke about the history and development of common law system, both in England and in Singapore. Additionally, you must appreciate the features of the common law system. So, to consolidate, these are the three main areas that I have covered in this section. Alright? Do you have any questions that you would like me to address? No questions? Okay, now, so if you actually refer back to your folder, legal project management folder, so we have 4 slides there, right? Welcome and introduction done. English and court legal systems done. Now we're going to move to the third one, the 4 cornerstones of the English legal system. Okay, so this is just to explain now. Slide number 3. Just show you which one. This one. The 4 cornerstones of English legal system. which can be found in the folder 1 and 2 lecture slides. Okay, everyone downloaded? Okay, now what are we going to discuss here? What are we going to look at here? Here, I'm going to explain to you about how the English common law system has evolved. It's actually a continuation of from where I stopped. I told you that Singapore has evolved, Singapore has modified the common law system to cater to our own local culture and politics, right? So I explained to you how the parliament is slightly different. I said, although we have 3 institutions, the relationship is slightly different, correct? Like we don't have the concept of parliamentary sovereignty in UK, sorry, in Singapore, but you have it in UK. So those are some small changes. But has the system in UK evolved? Yes. Do you know that some authors do describe the common law system as the contemporary legal system? What is the meaning of contemporary? Do you know what is the meaning of contemporary? Anyone? Contemporary means modern. Contemporary means recent. Modern. Shamila, you're right. Yes. That's the meaning of contemporary. So the English legal system is described to be a contemporary system because of the flexibility that you have in the system. So when I say because of the flexibility that you have in the system means, if you actually look at the system per se, the system gives the courts the discretion to make changes to the law, right? So therefore, as the society evolves, the courts will be able to pass new laws, okay? I know one cohort has studied constitutional law. Has the other cohort studied constitutional law? Cohort 11 has studied constitutional law. What about cohort 12? Constitutional law and administrative law. Azira, your cohort, have you all studied that? You studied that? Okay. Remember your assignment question? HRA and parliamentary sovereignty. The key case there will be HRA cases, right? Do you remember the case of Gaidan and Mendoza, guys? The Rent Act. Do you all remember? 2 homosexuals, they lived together. One homosexual partner died. The other homosexual partner wanted to continue his tenancy there. But what does the Rent Act say? Only you can continue if you are a, what was the word they used? Who remembers?
Husband, wife, is it?
The word spouse.
Spouse, yeah.
So what is the interpretation of spouse? Spouse is interpreted as husband or wife, right? Correct or not? So how do you apply this to a homosexual couple? Who's the husband, who's the wife? Do you see the problem there? So what was the decision? Who remembers the decision? Did the law allow the surviving partner to continue the tenancy agreement? Jason, are you talking to me or somebody else, Jason? Are you answering my question or somebody else?
Sorry.
Sarah,
I say that it was allowed.
was allowed, huh?
Yeah.
Yes. How did the courts allow? The word spouse, the court said, I'm going to force an interpretation to include homosexual couples. This is the first case in UK history to recognize homosexual couples to fall within the definition of spouse. Why am I discussing this case now all of a sudden? Why do you think the judges were able to do that? The judges could only do that because we have a contemporary system. Correct? The common law system, when it gives the courts the flexibility to develop laws, That's exactly how common law becomes a leading, or England basically is generally known as the leading common law system. We all tend to follow their approach, their interpretation here. Okay, so this is just to give you an idea what is the meaning of contemporary and how we're going to look at this system here. As much as the courts play an important role, there are other important principles that you need to be mindful of. Okay, so this part of the lecture will be a little bit of public law, that means your constitutional law lectures. Okay, so it's just to revive you back your constitutional law lectures. Anybody did enjoy the subject? Anybody's favorite subject, constitutional law? No. Amelia, was it your favorite subject? No way. My God. What about? Did I teach you constitutional law? No.
No, it was Mr. Chris.
Okay. Then perhaps I would have taught the other subject. Constitutional law is my favorite subject. But anyway, I guess whoever teaches you won't enjoy the subject. Okay, so let's now look at the learning outcomes here, okay? So we're going to go through the importance of the four cornerstones. We're going through principles like rule of law, separation of powers, parliamentary sovereignty. I'll go through all these principles shortly, okay? Then I will explain to you the three institutions, and we'll talk about supremacy of parliament, and then I'll just wrap up my lectures in relation to parliamentary sovereignty, okay? Seriously, I'm brain. My God. Okay, so you see this 1, 2, 3, 4. You're wondering what are the four cornerstones? Why did I talk about judiciary in the beginning? Because judicial independence is so important. How can we talk about the legal system if we don't talk about judiciary? The system is developed by the courts, right? So the system has evolved means it's because the courts have evolved the system. There are so many instances where Parliament's omission to legislate, that means Parliament's inaction to legislate, has driven the courts to legislate. For example, we did discuss the case of marital rape in my previous class, am I right? The case of Crown against Brown. Do you know that case was decided in 1998, like that, right? Just few years before that, the Sexual Offences Act was amended by Parliament. And there were many cases in the court, lower courts, where married wife had complained that they are being raped. Parliament did nothing. So that inaction will drive courts to develop legal principles. So that's why, as much as we study about parliamentary sovereignty, we cannot disregard judicial independence. See, now I get so passionate that I'll talk about public law so much. I forget that this is a legal system lecture. Just to share my perspective here. Do you know when we speak about parliamentary sovereignty, you can't deny the fact that the concept of sovereignty is conferred by the judiciary. If the judges do not accept Parliament as a sovereign institution, there's no such thing as parliamentary sovereignty. And that's the reason why in recent times, the courts have been very assertive to say that there's actually bipolar sovereignty. What is the meaning of bipolar sovereignty? That means in the legal system, there are two institutions that are sovereign, Parliament and the courts, which I'm going to now explain, support my arguments through case law. Okay, so I'll take you through all these system basically, Parliament sovereignty, separation of powers, rule of law, and so on. So firstly, let's talk about parliamentary sovereignty. Why don't you all tell me, what do you know about parliamentary sovereignty? Volunteers, please. Let me call out names, okay? Jasmine, I miss hearing your voice, Jasmine. Tell me something about parliamentary sovereignty, Jasmine. Jasmine, are you there, Jasmine? Edison, you can also tell me.
You want to ask me about parliamentary sovereignty?
Just tell me anything that you know about parliamentary sovereignty.
It's the highest law-making body in England.
Very good, correct. Thank you, Jasmine. And let's listen from Shankari. Shankari, are you there? Tell me something that you know about parliamentary sovereignty. Shankari, are you there? Shankari doesn't want to friend me, it's okay. I'll find another friend. Edison, tell me something that you know about parliamentary sovereignty. Sorry, I'm still at work. Ha ha ha. That's the wrong answer, Shankari. That has got nothing to do with parliamentary sovereignty. Edison, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Tell me something that you know about parliamentary sovereignty.
Is that no parliament can bind a future parliament?
Very good, correct. Thanks, Edison. Rizwan has said something. It makes Parliament the supreme legal authority in UK which can treat or end any law. You're absolutely right. Okay, so basically, based on what your classmates have said or shared, they've described that Parliament appears to be the ultimate sovereign power, right? Correct? So this features or this constitutional principle is one of the features in the common law system. So if you're wondering now, wait, how? So I told you about common law was developed by courts. When exactly did Parliament become sovereign? Do you have an answer for that? When exactly? Let's put back whatever I have taught, let's consolidate. Because at the end of this session, I want you to have a clear picture. In my previous session, I did spoke to you about the 11th century. Parliament is dominated by the king. King ruled. Then the king created courts. Courts begin to develop laws. Parliament wasn't developing. The courts was developing, right? How? When did Parliament then became sovereign in this common law system? So Amelia suggested that Dicey says, but Amelia, let's just reflect here. For Dicey to say that Parliament is sovereign, he must have some basis to confer the power on Parliament, right? He can't be the person conferring the power on Parliament. Dicey is just an academician, right? Anybody knows what actually happened which made Parliament to become a sovereign institution? Are you all ready to listen?
Oh, was it some like change in the monarchy?
Yes, correct.
Something along the line. That Comey or something.
Magna Carta was much earlier, Rizwan. Magna Carta was in the 11th, 12th century. Magna Carta is 1215. At that time, Parliament wasn't sovereign yet. Parliamentary sovereignty actually started at the end of the civil law through the enactment of the Bill of Rights 1689. Now, listen to me carefully. This Bill of Rights 1689, it doesn't say that Parliament is sovereign. But why was the Bill of Rights 1689 passed? Because of what Amelia said. The England monarchy had war with the monarchy in Scotland. In England, you had James II or someone, alright? And then in Scotland, the son-in-law was William Orange. He declared war with his father-in-law in England. So two monarchies at war, Scotland and England. Why? Because James he became a Catholic, alright? So it was a religious war. The son-in-law won. He conquered England. He defeated his father-in-law and James flew to France. So when the son-in-law conquered and won, England never had no more monarchy. No more king. The king ran away. So at that time they had parliament, but the parliament was controlled by the king, right? So those who were privileged, the very atas people, the bishops, they invited the son-in-law from Scotland and they told him this: you can become the king of England and Scotland. You take throne of two kingdoms with one condition, that the law-making powers must be given to Parliament. And William Orange agreed to that. So, in the Bill of Rights 1689, you can evidence the transfer of power. What power? The legislative power of the Crown to Parliament. So it is from 1689 that Parliament officially gained the power to make laws. But in 1689 Bill of Rights, it doesn't say it is sovereign. So over time, democracy was recognized. We begin to elect people to sit in Parliament. Parliament became greater than the judiciary because judiciary is not elected by the people. So technically, who must have more power to legislate? Parliament, right? So that is how the people begin to accept Parliament, and the courts also accepted Parliament as a sovereign institution. This is all history. So how to prove this history? You go back, if you're really interested, you look at common law cases before 1689. I give you some example of cases. If you look at cases like the proclamation case, I can't remember the name of this case. You can also look at Dr. Bonham's case. These are all extremely, very, very old cases. In these cases, the judges warned Parliament and say, hey, I'm more powerful than you have to listen to me. But after 1689, you will see the judicial attitude is different. You will see loyalty towards parliamentary sovereignty. That is a little history between these two institutions that you must understand. Okay? And I'll tell you why am I explaining all of this. Not because I want to, bore my lectures and talk about history. Because today, if you look at the case of AG and Jackson, you remember this case? You remember this case? The Hunting Act? In AG and Jackson, you should go and read Lord Stein. Lord Stein and Lord Pope. They, in the judgment, reminded Parliament of Parliament's roots. They told Parliament, I accepted you. I was the original sovereign institution. I have given you the power by accepting you. I can always choose not to accept you. So that is the reason why they actually wrote that in the judgment. Now you know what it means, right? Because parliamentary sovereignty is a constitutional principle. There is only evidence in case laws to show that the courts have accepted this as a sovereign institution. There is no act of parliament in the UK to say that parliament is sovereign. All right? So that is the relationship, that is the place of parliamentary sovereignty within the common law system, the English common law system. Okay? So what you see here is something that you studied in your public law, that the reason challenges to parliamentary sovereignty. Now, HRA is debatable. Some will say it does question, some will say no. But this Jackson and AG is very important. Okay? So this I'm not going to go through in depth here because this is not even part of your assessment. This is more inclined towards public law. But I just want to remind you of the place of these two institutions, their relationship. Okay? Then separation of powers is the next aspect that we need to discuss. Now, what is with separation of powers? Separation of powers, as you know, we've got these three institutions. I've already spoken to you about these three institutions and how they've got respective functions. I've got a question for you and I want you to think. Do you really think we can have strict separation of powers? Do you think it is possible to have 100% strict separation of powers? Possible or not possible? What do you all think? not possible. We will become like US, not possible. But do you know even in US, they have better separation of powers. They don't 100% strict separation of powers. There is no nation with 100%. Do you know why I said even in US there's no 100%? The president still involves in the legislative process. The president is supposed to be part of the executive, right? But you need the presidential assent, and he also advocates for the bill. So there is still no 100% there. But Edison is right. Their workings there is very different, very rigid. Anything is possible, but may not work well. Well, the answer that I was looking for is strict SOP can result in constitutional deadlock. There'll be constitutional deadlock. For example, we need to have relationship between the executive and the legislature. The executives are elected by the public. So when the executives are elected by the public, they represent the public. So they are like, I won't use the word mediator, but you're supposed to go to Parliament and tell the Parliament what are the laws, what are the concerns of the public, right? And that's what you see our members of Parliament do. If Parliament were to work in isolation, how will Parliament know what type of laws must they legislate for the public? How would they know? They won't know. So therefore, to a large extent, the working relationship between executive and legislature is accepted as long as you've got adequate checks and balances. If there's adequate checks and balances, it's a good working relationship. But I'm not going to deny that the executive can abuse the powers when they are part of the legislature. How can the executive abuse powers when they are part of the legislature? Is it possible for it to happen? How, Jason? Your answer is correct, Jason.
Yes.
I just want to hear some explanation.
So they can just, the legislation can make the law now.
So, okay, so what is the problem with that?
So any laws that does not suit you, you just can change it.
Yeah, so basically abuse of powers, that's what Jason is saying. Abuse of powers, yeah, Prem, you're also right. Abuse of powers in the sense where it's very easy for the executive to propose laws which favors their needs or political needs, right? So that's the reason why we need to have good checks and balance in the system itself, okay? So in the United Kingdom, we don't have strict separation of powers for sure. Nevertheless, we still expect the judiciary to be independent. And the reason why we want the judiciary to be independent, because there's no strict separation of powers. Even if the judiciary overlaps with the legislature by developing laws, like I mentioned earlier, we must actually look at that as a complement. When the judges pass laws, I think it's a good initiative. And the reason why I would say it's a good initiative, because they will fill in the gaps where it's necessary. Okay, so that's in relation to separation of powers. So regardless of all of that, so you also have to bear in mind that the idea of judicial independence, this is what I spoke to you about, that we must ensure that judiciary is independent all the time. See, it's okay for the judiciary to overlap with the legislature because we see benefits there. But when it comes to overlapping with the executive, that is extremely dangerous. The judiciary, if it works together with the executive, I will say, or I would argue that there is no good system because executive are politicians, right? So when you look at these politicians here, they cannot dominate the judiciary. There's no fairness or there's no justice in your system. Okay, so it's quite important for there to be judicial independence, right? Now, when we speak of judicial independence here, you must also remember that this judicial independence is guaranteed in a way where the courts will carry out its function independently. No political access to the judiciary. If let's say now the courts makes a decision or has to resolve a case, no one will have special access to the courts. Even if it's the Lord Chancellor in UK, the Lord Chancellor today is the Secretary of State for Justice, same position as Ministry of Law, Minister of Law in Singapore. Even the minister, or in UK we call Secretary of State, cannot, should not, must not influence the courts. The court's role is only limited to finding and applying the laws passed by Parliament, right? The courts do loyally accept laws made by Parliament. So when I say we do loyally accept the laws made by Parliament, in the context or in the circumstances where we want to ensure that there is still parliamentary sovereignty. So it's a voluntary acceptance by the judiciary of parliamentary sovereignty. Okay. Now the next is rule of law. I'm not sure if you have heard of rule of law. Maybe you would have heard of rule of law very briefly. Let me explain to you the idea of rule of law. So rule of law here, the meaning, this is another important principle within the English system. When you look at these three words here, rule of law, how would you interpret these three words? In your own understanding, what do you think it means? What do you think is the meaning of rule of law? Anyone can interpret? Morality, okay. Shane, do you want to explain the morality part a little bit more so that I get your idea?
I guess it's got to do with a little bit of as long as anything that is not moral, not the right thing to do, no one should be doing it.
Okay. So you're basically fairness fairness in law.
Yeah, I think it goes beyond fairness actually.
Okay.
Yeah, like for example, if we try to apply a statute on a or rather we try and apply the same law on a 3-year-old or 5-year-old who is not aware, haven't gone through the whole educational process, then that's not fair, right?
Okay. Do you know that there's actually, you're right, Anshin. I will come back to your view shortly. Let me listen to what your classmate says. Okay, then Amelia says consistency. So Amelia, is your consistency what you're trying to say is equality? The laws must be applied same to all. Is that what you're trying to say?
Something like that, but also the same kind of situation will be dealt with roughly the same.
Like cases must be decided alike.
Yeah.
That's equality. Okay, that's not equality really, but it's the same laws must be applied to fairness. Okay, to be fair to all, the same law must be applied to everyone. In a way, it comes under the concept of equality. Everybody is equal under the eyes of law. Same laws apply to everyone. Okay. Then laws must be correctly interpreted. Okay, nobody is above the law. Yeah, correct. So Rizwan, you're trying to say that there's actually supremacy of law. So that's why you're saying no one is above the law. Okay. Then Nishang says that a society is governed by law as opposed to decrees and other forms of exercising. Yeah. So basically, Yishin is trying to say that there shouldn't be dictatorship. There must be law which is sovereign, and we are all governed by the law. All of your interpretation is right. You've all explained different ways, and why do I say all of you are right, is because there's no definition for rule of law. I wanted to talk about what Shin said earlier. Shin was actually very focused on the content of law. The rest of you will focus about how the law must apply, to whom does the law must apply. But she was talking about the substantive law. She's saying when you pass laws, you must pass good laws, you must pass fair laws, the laws cannot contradict moral principles. Shin, do you know that there's actually an academician who promoted rule of law from that perspective, and his name is called Joseph Rex. We can say Joseph Raz, R-A-Z. That is his ideology of rule of law. He says that a country will have rule of law if you look at the content, the way how they pass law, follow the rules, and the laws must be available to everybody else. The rest of you will belong to Dicey's school of thought. Dicey did not only speak about parliamentary sovereignty, Dicey has also written about rule of law. Dicey also says it is the law which is sovereign. Dicey also says everybody is equal above the law. That means this is the law, we are all here. Executive, normal civilian, we are all same. Alright? Dicey also says that judges are the best protectors of our human rights because parliament is a political institution. So there are many different academicians with different theories of rule of law. Have you heard of Karl Marx? Yeah, for some people, democracy is rule of law, but the meaning of democracy varies. Democracy in India is very different from democracy in Singapore and Malaysia. Too much of democracy is not good. Let's talk about Karl Marx. Do you know Karl Marx describes law as a false ideology? He says there's no rule of law in the present system. So he developed his own system. It's actually not communism. Communism came out of Marxism. Communism, there's very different system that they followed in communism. But if you look at Marxism, Karl Marx's theory was never ever implemented anywhere. His theory is, in order to ensure there's equality, continue doing your job. You're a doctor, you're a cobbler, you're a lawyer, or you're a bus driver, all of you just do your job. But I need to treat all of you equal. You take your money, give it to me. I'll pay all of you equally. He said that's the only way we can achieve equality. That's the only way everybody will be treated equally. Karl Marx thinks that money empowers. That's why he's against capitalists. So that's why this Karl Marx theory is also studied by business students, also studied by law students, because he speaks about the system. All right? So here, when you look, getting back to rule of law, there are different ways to measure rule of law in different countries. But based on your interpretation of rule of law, I want to ask you all a question. Do you think UK practices rule of law? Do you think there's rule of law in UK? I'm not going to ask you about Singapore, maybe you will hesitate. So that's why I'm asking you about UK. What do you all think?
I think so, because Lord Bingham wrote a book on it.
So you think because Bingham wrote a book about it, that's why we have rule of law? Okay. Not because...
I think it's analogous to like a disclaimer, right? Because it's such a big ideology, you don't have something specific targeted at what the rule of law is, but they always give a disclaimer and say, in the obiter that I recognize parliamentary sovereignty. However, if you do get to the extent of breaking the rule of law, we will not recognize PS, right? Sovereignty. So I think it's kind of like a place for them to be able to challenge certain rules in the future, just giving themselves an opening. Yeah.
Very good point that you presented, and you presented with authorities. Very good. You're beginning to speak like a lawyer. Now, when it comes to rule of law, I just want to clarify and explain Shin's point further. Shin is basically saying that, of course, there's rule of law in the UK, and this can be evidenced in judgments like AG and Jackson. That's what she was referring to. She said that the courts will intervene when there's breach of rule of law. That means there is still rule of law in the UK. That's her point to tackle it. All right? Of course, I will agree with Shin because today, if you look at the idea of rule of law, the civilians' rights must also be protected, correct? I don't see any abuse of powers where the civilians' rights are suppressed in the UK. Of course, there will be some students who can rebut me and say, no, there are so many violations of rights. In some cases, they're deported without a fair trial. In some cases, they don't get freedom of speech. You are absolutely right. But if you examine these cases further, rights is not only for one person, rights are for everyone. If I'm going to now walk out of my room and go and meet someone and say, Amelia is a lazy student, I feel that she's not focused in my class. I say bad things about Amelia. And then if Amelia listens to this and she's upset, she wants to sue me for defamation, do you think it will be fair for me to rely on freedom of speech? What about Amelia's reputation? What about me spreading false rumors against Amelia? Who should the law protect? Amelia or me? Amelia. Not me. My freedom here must be suppressed because I'm spreading false allegations. So this is what the point that I'm trying to say is there will always be cases where if you look at it from surface, it may look like the rights are not recognized. But once you start reading the judgment, when you know there's a rationale behind the decision, there's a reason behind the law. Why are terrorists deported? Terrorists are not deported. Obviously, you're going to question the government when there's an attack, right? So sometimes the violation of rights are very important in order to protect the society's rights. So you suppress an individual's rights to protect the society. A very simple case. All our Changi prisoners, will you be happy if they are released now? Be in the same society, go to the same hawker center, would you want to live in a society with all criminals? Or would you want the state to take them away and put them separately? Put them separately, right? Correct or not? You see the ideology here? So we need to be very objective here. Some rights for some people has to be compromised, must be compromised in some circumstances for the greater good of the society. Okay? So this is just to illustrate that rule of law is a very broad aspect. To wrap up, if you have good governance, if your rights are protected, equality, I think you have rule of law here. Okay? So now to wrap up, this is the contemporary system that we have. We don't only have the traditional common law system where judges still sit in the courts and develop law. Together with the role of the judges, these constitutional principles are so important in a common law system here. The common law system must recognize rule of law. The common law system must still survive in the lack of separation of powers. The judiciary must still be independent. Common law must still accept parliamentary sovereignty. Can you now bring them all together? Can you see now why did I say it's a contemporary system? So this is how the system has evolved in the United Kingdom. All right? Do you have any questions? Are there any questions? No questions. Okay, then we'll stop for break. After the break, we'll answer seminar 1. Then we will move to the case note seminar 2. Okay, first we will answer questions from seminar 1. All right? I'll see you guys back at 8:20.
Namala, for the seminar 1, there's supposed to be a case that we're supposed to read, right? But I can't find it.
It's okay. I'll deal with you shortly.
Oh, okay. So can I go for break or should I stay?
Okay, you can go for break.
Okay.
I'll come with you.
Okay, sure. See you.
Yeah.
Cakapnya. Cakap. Cakap. Baby. Baby. Sudah. Sudah. Cakap. Ini Oma. Cakap ni. Oh ni, kan yang suka.哇，这个鸡蛋太难吃了。是哦，这个老师，你跟我讲给他是2块了。没说是已经买很久了。我用那个叫什么？那叫什么来？你要吗？我知道。Sendiri咯，Luna。哦。在。 有那么烈？哇，毛啊！我有点晚了。哎。上课当然不行，你要什么意思？人没有上课，你说你要什么？人有上课，我就说你。我有上课啊，上课听的。哦。S.2也是很贵的。没有去看人家的。有啊。不美。所以可能不要放手吧。坐到地上哦。我这帮人给不，换一个吧，他们坐在地上。多少钱？贵的说法。嗯？maybe the budget of the business.他还要用金属用黑色的，不对的。黑色是咩 brand？ China refrigerator， 我们European 的过来。啊？不用，因为我不用。我要讲，如果你要用黑色混，你不要放refrigerator。The low cost 吧，用黑色的refrigerator。有没有觉得？我也是觉得如果有人还可能 OK， 因为谁要看 brand。对啊，等于是这吗？后面有人看到了。对啊，but then 扫描出来，它是一些 very visible。 刚才讲我们不是卖民族的，然后讲的，我们就不要放民族了。你的想法是讲我们不是搞卖民族，就搞民族就好了。然后我今晚不要放民族。
真的是不要放。
对吧？
你们吃什么？
吃吗？那东西吃什么？没有民族啊。
等下下次你们有 staff 的话，他们要吃东西放东西吃。
那不是了个军吗？你说了我这次。
说了个军，你们没有民族。
没有啊，那我买个小的。你某一个就是个马来人，都是的。今天某一个马来人都是的。一个我啊，什么？哪里啊？是啥？我们在你这美式的 operation 70% 买的。
operation 吗？
呀，走，我们找马来人做设计。
每次 customer 还 end 的是 Chinese。
马来人才是有啊，才去做好马来人什么？
因为他是 low end 的嘛，不是讲 low end customer。你们呢？
马来人也是讲马来人的，有啊，美式的，我们马来人也是好，我才拿我们的，还能放几十万。哎呀，这顿拍好吃，还是可能用那个叫什么啊？啊？没说熟。8:20。有啊，去找他的考生吃东西。我以为我去吃完了上课了。奶奶。啊？好像好一点点了。我昨天晚上已经来吃了。
你放那个什么泡水那？
用完了，昨天晚上我是。
放那个泡水那，你放光了吗？
知道我有空的。
对啊。
ข้างในสมัยเป็นก้อนอยู่เนี่ย
Oke, semuanya suka pada tahu di dapur. Ya, bos, kalau pakai tahun.
Siapa dia orang?
Ini. Kalau boyfriend bos lah.
Boyfriend masih tak boleh.
Origin kalau boyfriend. Oh, saya dapat nak laptop kali lah. Saya dia bagus. Pergi dia datang move in. Move in lah, sudah. Saya tahun ini yang dulu datang sini untuk orang sini. Momen saya ambil pihak kawan memang. Saya kuliah now, yang ada boyfriend. Ya,
不知道有没有楼里可以直接定一个时间送进小货，会比较好。因为这样子的话，我觉得那个人的那个他没有地方可以载货，说那个货一定要直接送去晒，然后要改一个时间，就是如果那货早上送去，人们可以过去那边直接拿上去。不然的话，真的是很不方便的样子，很难安排东西的，因为有的地方很小的。
Hi guys, hello again. Okay, so let's now look at our seminar questions. So seminar question will be seminar 1. But I'm hoping that now, since most of you are already here, there are a few issues that I wanted to address. So let me address these few issues now, okay? So before we start discussion, let me accidentally close that. First issue is, okay. Now we spoke about, I think somebody asked me about last week, assignment 3, the submission deadline. Okay, I want to explain this. Do you all see my screen here? So research essay deadline for summative is 22nd October. Wills and estate will drafting is 22nd October too. Now, do you see that you have 2 dates for mooting? Okay, so it's not that the legal skeleton is 12 September and then 22nd October for reflective journal here. Let's get the dates right here. Now, all of you, do you remember? I said for mooting, you have to make a presentation. Do you all remember? I said you have to make a presentation, and for your presentation, you have to come up with a skeletal argument. Okay? How to present? What are the advocacy skills? I will take you through when we do mooting class. But when is your presentation? When are you going to do your oral presentation? I've got now a registered student 34. But so far in these 2 classes, only 20 something is attending. So Kaplan is still trying to finalize who are the students who are dropping out, not being part of this cohort, so that I wouldn't want to group you or partner you with them. Okay? So hopefully by tomorrow, day after, by this week, I will get the list from them. But getting back to when will your presentation be? The presentation is supposed to be on the last 2 classes. So when is the last 2 classes? Our last two classes will be 16th September and 21st September. Am I right? Those are the last two classes. Look at your calendar. It's a Friday and it's a Wednesday. 16th September and 21st September. Correct? Yeah, it should be correct. Okay, that's the calendar we have. Your presentation will either be on 16 or 21. That means both days there will be presentation. I will allocate and tell you, for example, Jason's presentation perhaps is on the 16th. Azira's presentation can be on the 21 because I've got 20 over students. I cannot hear everybody's presentation in 4 hours. So the presentation will be broken into two. So listen to me carefully. What is the purpose of presentation? The presentation that you're doing, no marks for that. Then I know what's in your mind. Oh, then I don't want to present. But if you don't present, you cannot prepare this reflective journal here. Okay? Again, what is this 12 September? 12 September is where you have to hand in your legal skeleton to me. Your submission for your legal skeleton must be done before your presentation. When you go to the court, you have to prepare a lot of documents, right? Legal skeleton is one of it. So what exactly is this legal skeleton? Do you have sample? Do you have template? Everything is already given. You can see in that folder. But like I said, I can't do that. Mooting is in our upcoming lectures. When we go through mooting, I will prepare you about this legal skeleton and so on. Now, this is the most important part. Your 12 September submission for the legal skeleton is not your formative draft. That is your final summative. Okay, for the legal skeleton. But your presentation will either take place on 16th or 21st. Are we clear with this? Okay? Now, are we clear or not? Are you all listening to me? Can I get some information?
I cannot understand why you say 16 September, then 22nd October.
Because when I said that, you went to get something.
Yeah.
I give you as an example, Jason. I said that there are 2 days allocated for presentation. You will have to present on either one day. Okay? The you will either present on 16th or on 21st. I will prepare the timetable and I'll give it to you. You know, like for negotiation, how I prepare the timetable and date will be exactly similar to that. Okay? So your presentation are 2 days. You will only present one day. Because I got so many students, so that's why we need 2 days for presentation. But your legal skeleton, I repeat again, your legal skeleton must be submitted to me on 12th September. The legal...
12 September.
Yes. You see the screen here? You see this 12 September? Okay? So the submission for the legal skeleton is 12 September. Can I get the confirmation from the rest? Are you all following me? Because I got more information to share. The rest of you?
Yep, all good.
All good, huh? Okay, very good. Now, the legal skeleton that you're submitting on 12 September is the final. But do you see for works and estate and research essay, your deadline is 22nd, right? Now, how do you submit all of this? Research essay, wills and estate, and your third component, which is legal skeleton, combine all of them into one file and upload it again on 22nd October. So the legal skeleton submission will be twice. Legal skeleton, I need to get that on 12 September because I need to read it before your presentation. I need to be prepared on what you are going to present, what your arguments are. Hence, it's 12 September. But the final submission, all three must be merged into one document and you'll upload one final file on 22nd October. Okay? Then I know some of you will be thinking, okay, 12th September to 22nd October, I still have time, I can make changes to my legal skeleton. You cannot. I will verify what you have submitted on 12th September, that will be your final legal skeleton. You're just re-uploading it once again. Are we clear here? Do not make any changes. Okay? Yes, Yisheng?
Just a quick question. Do you mean the reflective journal or the legal skeleton for the 22nd of October?
Everything must be given on 22nd. research essay, wills and estate, legal skeleton, reflective journal, all in one document.
Okay, so the legal skeleton we submit twice, once before and then another time on the 22nd October again.
Correct. The before is the 12th September.
Okay, thanks. So in essence, there are 4 parts to submit on the 22nd of October.
4 parts means in one file, huh?
Okay, all right.
Because you know why one file? Your LMS can only accept one file.
Okay, and this should be in a PDF format.
You can send PDF also fine.
Okay, thank you.
Please adhere to your word counts. Don't write anything lesser. Don't write anything a lot lah, because 10% will be deducted. Or we have the option to stop reading from where your word count stops. Okay. Okay.
How about your formative?
Okay, so did Charlie send you an email about 16 September for the legal skeleton? So he would have sent you, I think, let me just verify, because there's another cohort having legal project management. That 16 could be for that cohort. Alright? Yeah, so if he were to say 16, let me see where did he get his date from. Because there's another cohort, I think cohort 10 is also studying legal project management. Vijay is teaching that cohort. So let me just verify with Charlie, where did he get the 16th September? And then I'll confirm with you in my next class. Thanks for highlighting, Andrew, whether it is 12 September or 16 September. But I think it cannot be 16 September. You know why? Because 16 September is your presentation with me. How can it be 16 September you submit your legal skeleton? So I think the 16 September is for the other intake, not for you. Do you understand or not? The 16 September and 21st September are the last 2 dates of our classes which are allocated for mooting. So, yeah, Lucas, so like I said, this date 16 September will not make sense for us. Because I cannot receive your legal skeleton and then immediately accept your listen to your hearing. So I can ask him to send an amended email to say it's 12 September. Okay? Are we clear with that? Not to say that I don't want to give you the deadline, the timeline, but I hope you understand that I need to read your legal arguments before your meeting lah. That's why. Okay? Are we okay with that? Lucas, are we fine?
Marla, for the mooting case, right? Do we assume certain facts? Because why we have questions or more questions about the facts of the case? Or do we just stick to what's there and that's it?
You must stick to what's given to you.
Okay.
Stick at your negotiation. Stick to what's given to you. Okay? Alright. Even if you panic during your presentation, don't worry. Like I said, no marks are given for your presentation. Marks is only for legal skeleton and your reflective journal. Alright? Okay. The next thing that I want to discuss with you is your formative assessment. You have so many assessments for this subject. Alright? But your formative is for which assessment? Only the research essay. Are we clear with that? There's only one formative, because this is very important. It carries a lot of mark, your research essay, right or not? So when it carries a lot of marks here, your research essay carries 50%. So we decided that it is the research essay that we have to give priority to for formative. So your research essay, like I said, we are all fighting against time. I cannot read 3,500, 2,500 words and give comments in a short time. So it's just a skeleton argument, and of course it's impossible for you to prepare within a short line time. 700 words. So 700 words means don't write in full sentences and paragraph. 2 points will finish. So if I were you, I'll show you how I would prepare my legal my formative assessment. So you can do this for me. Introduction, you can write like this. Address the key issues, introduce LESPO. Then body. Identify problems. Okay? Say lack of access to fair trial. No confidence.
Okay,
Do
okay.
you know? So when I start seeing this, now I know, okay,
拍
this
字
student,
到時
this
我睇
student
要
is
啦，
elaborating the
所以我
correct
將那
point.
個 Raymond 拍
Then you
早
can
上
go
記載，
to the next problem.
之後係真齋啫嘛，有冇地址啊？或者地址我先。
Then identify the strengths. So the strength is, I'll say, access, more cases have access to the court. Public funding. So when I read, I clearly know, okay, this student has got the points right, because I just want a rough answer outline with me. With this, you can give me a very detailed 700 words to get me. But if I take these 4 points now and I start writing in full sentences, you will not be able to convey the other points that you have. Do you see? And if you have any questions, you can put like that. Is this point valid? So when I give you back your response, I will address the question. Do you see here? So this is how you prepare a rough answer outline for this research essay. Okay, you don't have to give me your footnotes for research essay outline for formative, bibliography all not required. All of that is only required for your findings. Don't listen to me carefully when I say not required means not for the complete essay. For the formative, I don't want to say all of that. Not really important. Okay, guys? So do not submit your formative for wills and estate and legal skeleton or reflective journal. Don't submit for all of that because even if you submit, no comments is going to be given for that. Comments will only be given for this. Alright? Again, do you all have any questions with regard to this? And when is the deadline for this? Yashin, you got the date?
I thought it was 18, okay, or 19, Amelia.
Okay, if you want to. Correct.
Huh?
August.
18 is safer lah then.
Okay.
One day before.
Alright, so 19 August, you submit hopefully by a week or so. I can read as soon as I share my comments on LMS. I will let you know that you can go and read your comments. Okay, guys? Alright? Is formative mandatory? Of course, no. Formative is for you to just check I know the right part if you want to. Alright? Yeah, so that is with regard to your formative itself. So I think we've sorted the dates, then the materials they've re-uploaded. Alright, so everything's sorted out. Whatever issues that you have addressed last week, I hope I've resolved all of them. Okay, now, if you still have any questions, don't worry. You will still be seeing me for classes, right? You can ask me questions, okay? But the Charlie one, thanks for highlighting that, as I hope you can understand, that definitely cannot be on the 16th. So that I think maybe is for Vijay's cohort the 16th, okay? It would have been a general email that he forwarded. I can ask him to just amend it and send you the correct one, okay? All right, now, this pre-seminar activity, I guess most of you have not completed. Now, let me tell you why is this even a pre-seminar activity? Because this is to show or see how do you do research, how do you conduct research. Now, I realized that for your cohort, I only taught you India, am I right? I never taught you any other subjects, right? Any substantive subject. Okay, so now I'm going to teach you how to do research. Okay? Maybe you know, maybe your teachers would have taught you, but let me just do my part. Do you all have access to the BCU online library? Can we all log in at the same time? Let me just teach you. As I teach you, you navigate at your side, then you will learn, okay? I'm giving everybody some time to log in. I will also log in using my username and password, alright? If you have a login, just wait there for a while. I'm still just find my password. Okay. Have you all logged into this site, ICT here? If you need a little bit more time, just let me know. I'll wait for you. Ivan, can you access Ivan? Jocelyn? Are you guys okay?
Sorry, how do you access this?
Okay, you know when you register with BCU in the start, they would have given you username and password. The university would have directly emailed you. It's a very special platform for all
Do we
BCU.
need this to do assignment?
Sorry?
Do we need this to do assignment?
Yeah, then only you can do legal research.
Oh.
Otherwise, you're only going to find Google articles. I'm going to teach you how to find proper legal journal. This one, do you know law firms have to pay for all of this? You're getting it for free. You can't log in. Who said can't log in? Shamila. Why, Shamila? Do you have your, what does it say? That your username and password is not recognized? Is that what it says? Amelia, have you logged in? Okay. Azira, have you logged in? Yisheng, have you logged in?
Yeah, I'm in already.
Very good. Just hang on, okay? We'll just wait for your classmates. It says user account does not exist in tenant data. Okay. Take a screenshot. Can you please send it to Charlie tomorrow and get him to help you with that? Okay? All good, Yisheng. Very good. Prem, what does it say, Prem? If you cannot, if it says it doesn't recognize or anything,
it's the password. Mine is a password.
You
and I just reset it 2 days ago and it's still the same, but I don't know why I can't log in.
Okay.
It was saved. It was even saved in the under the internet under my favorites. So by right it should be logging in automatically, but when I click it, it's not going in.
Okay, the one the IT part all I can't help. Maybe you get Charlie to help you. Okay.
Time you try clearing the cookies, see whether it works.
Try that
before. I already tried that.
I tried.
Yeah.
Then the rest of you, Rizwan, what about you? Jesslyn? All can? Okay, very good. So can I then start? Can I show you all? Can I? Okay. Now you scroll down, you see here library. Okay, with me, you see this expand arrows here, these two arrows. You click on them. Okay. Then you will see few tabs here. My account, opening times, and links. Please click on links. Okay. When you click on links, you can find library website, your account, find resources, reading this online. Okay. Click on find resources. Then it will take you to this page. Okay? Do you see books? You see journal articles, databases. If you click on books, you can find books. Some books are available for free for reading, some books are not. Let's just try, I click on books first. For books here, you have to scroll down Scroll down, wait, it will take you here. Okay, for books, now you came to this page, right? You must go to now. You see library and learning resources homepage, right? You're going to click on that again. It will take you back to this page. Okay, sure, Prem, no problem. Wait, let me see if I can go back. Okay, Prem, I'll tell you what to do, you do. You see the red box library there, Prem? You see the library there? You go and expand the two arrows, you click on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then there'll be 4 tabs on top. You click on links. If you clicked on links, then it will take you to this page.
Okay, ma'am, just hang on. I don't know what happened. I got logged out again.
Oh dear.
Yeah,
Okay,
really...
you just see me first, You just see me first, okay? Going through.
Okay, yeah, sure, no problem.
Then we have books. I told you to go to books first. From books, then on my left side here, I said click library and learning resources, right? Okay. So this is where you can find books. So for example, I find Bradley and Ewing. Okay. I clicked on that. Search. That's the author's name. If you don't know the author's name, you want to find by subject also can. Okay? So I searched for Bradley and Ewing. Bradley. Ewing is Ewing. Then it takes me to this page. This page basically tells me not only books, but also any articles written by the author. Can you see? Ewing and Bradley. And then there's a constitutional and administrative law. This is a textbook. Right. I'm teaching you how to find textbooks first, right? So let's stick to that. So I'll click on the seen all versions. Apparently they got 3 versions. Let me click on this. So these 3 versions, you see, look at the first one, available online. If you look at the second one, it says available at Curzon Library. The Curzon Library is in Birmingham, in their campus. So let's go and click the online. Click online here. Okay. So when I click online, you see it says view online, full text available, right? I'll click on this ebook now. Okay, I'm going to click on that. To log in again. This will ask me for password. Okay, there you go. Ta-da! See? You can now read online. Million times I tried to download, the book cannot download. It always says that something is wrong with my app. So you can try to either download the PDF chapters, or when you need to read, you just click online. Click online. There. Okay. Not all textbooks are available. You got to do a little bit funding lah. So when you want to find based on subjects, search lah. English legal system, civil justice system. So play around with your words. Look through for materials. This is the meaning of legal research. We go to a proper platform, a legal platform to find for materials. Okay guys? Okay. So this is one way how you can find textbooks. Now, let's find legal materials. So to find legal materials, I need to take you back to the ICT account. Okay? I'm going to go back to the main page. Okay, let's go back to this main page. Then you go back to this library here. Click on these arrows. Okay, expand it. Same thing, click on links. Same thing, let's go to find resources. Okay, let's click on that. Earlier also we find resources, right? We click on find resources. Earlier, I told you to click on books. Now, don't click on journal articles. You see this databases? You click on these databases.
Marla, sorry, my ICT dashboard is very different from yours.
You want to share screen? Yeah, let me share screen.
But I can't because I'm using my desktop whilst I'm using Zoom on my iPad. So I show you like that actually. The traditional way. You see? It's
Okay,
like that.
I'm not very clear. I can't really see. Let me see what I can do.
I did very bad. Right, okay. You see? So I click on this explore, right? And then there's library here, which was just now, which was.
Are the rest of yours same as Shin?
Now this is correct. You see the library?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then when I go to ICT here, it shows like that.
Okay, I think because you must go back to the same link. Don't go back. You clicked back, right?
No, Once I logged in, right? Once I logged in, I was already at the library and resources page. I wasn't at your page actually.
Okay, so you were in library and resources page. In your
Yes.
library and resources page, what do you see there?
Same as.
Okay, never mind. I can show you. I know what you're telling me. You are telling me you're able to see this one, right? Correct?
Yeah, this one.
You have this. The rest of you have this. Don't worry. From here also, I can take you through. Just now, I asked you to type here for the books. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you see this A to Z databases?
Yeah.
You can still click on this.
Oh, okay.
Click on this A to Z databases and we'll take you to this page. Whether it's my initial approach or this approach, I want you to come to these databases. Correct, this is the one sheet, right? Yes.
Okay.
Okay, now you can, these are all your databases that you can click on any one of these to find materials written by publishers, academicians. But don't worry, I'll be very specific. I usually use Westlaw. I've always used Westlaw, so I'm going to be biased. I'm just going to teach you how to use Westlaw, okay? Click on W. Please click on W here. Okay, click on this W. Then can you see there's warc.com, Web of Science, Westlaw, right? Right? These are all the W databases. Please click on Westlaw. Wait down, my page is taking time. Okay, so it takes you here now to this page.
I think we have to register.
It will ask you to, you do that, I'll wait for you, okay? You mean login once again, right, Azira?
They asked to register, so I'm not sure if we are supposed to use our DCU email or our personal email. Does it matter?
I actually don't know, you can try both and see. I think I use my BCU email. You should use your BCU email. Shin, are you at this or do you also need to register? I can't hear you.
It's a Thomson Reuters registration.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so trying.
You mean you managed to go until the W Westlaw? After you click Westlaw, it requires you to register.
Yes.
Just register and let me know the outcome.
Okay.
I'll pray for you all that you all can.
Yeah, I think I'm in already.
Okay, the rest of you.
So I use my BCU email. I tried using my personal. I think they say unverified or something.
And the same password, right?
Yeah,
No need
correct.
password.
Okay.
No need.
No need,
No
yeah?
need password. Yeah.
Very good. So I'm assuming everyone's fine. Emily, are you okay? Done? Rizwan, all fine, huh? Yisheng, all okay? Managed to get to this page here? Okay, very good. Now, you see here cases, legislation, journals, right? Legislation, you don't have to come here to find the Act of Parliament. You do a Google search, you can find the official website. So here, I'm only going to teach you how to find cases and how to find journals, okay? If you know the name of the case and you want to read the entire judgment, okay, you're just going to click on case search. If you want to find the court of appeal cases, then you go and search by courts. But now let's say you don't know which court, you only know the name of the case. Click on case search. Okay, so you see parties here, you type the name of the parties. So for example, Donahue and Stevenson, right? Type the name of the case, and then a search. There you go. See, the first one is the case was heard in the Court of Session, the lower court. But why do you want to read the lower court's judgment? The House of Lords judgment is the precedent, right? If you click on yellow case analysis, you just get a brief abstract of the judgment. But if you click on this is called the citation of the case, right? The full judgment will come. There you go. I click on the citation, the entire decision will appear. And that's how you have access to all case law judgments for free. Okay? There you go. But sometimes you want to download them and read them later, right? On your right side, you'll be able to see this arrow pointing down, download here. You click on this, you can download it in PDF documents. Okay? How to read judgments? Judgments are very lengthy. Sometimes when you read cases, you do not want to read the entire judgment. These things are very easy, not like when I was a student, never had all this access. We literally had libraries of law reports. You have to open the law reports and find the particular paragraphs. Today, if I want to find the paragraph where the judge spoke about parliamentary sovereignty in Jackson and the judgment is online, what do you think I will do? What do you think I will do? I want to find only selected paragraphs where they spoke about parliamentary sovereignty, and I'm using my electronic device. What can I do? Yes, Control F. You just have to Control F, type parliamentary sovereignty, it will show you all the paragraphs with that. That's how you do research very fast and smartly. Don't have to necessarily read the whole thing. You've got no time for that. Okay? So that's about searching cases. There's another alternative way to find cases. Okay? Now the other alternative way to find cases is, do you remember the citation here? No, 1932 AC 562, right? If I go back to cases, if you know the citation of the case, you can just type the citation, the judgment will appear. So that's the reason why there's a section here for citation. Okay, when you type the citation, the exact case will appear. But what if now you don't know the name of case? What if now you want to find what is the current case? Legal research, right? You see this free text? I'll just type consumer. I search. So now all the judgment will appear. Any judgment, if they use the word consumer, now I have to go through and I have to see which one is relevant here. Alright? So which means if you look at these cases here, there's something about consumer here. You can refine your search. Look here. If let's say you want to find consumer in relation to health and social affair, insolvency, you just going to click on that. It will appear. Do you see here? So this is you generally doing a random search on a topic, trying to identify what are the current updates in terms of cases. So the free text or the keywords, you can also use keywords. When you use keywords to search, based on the topics, it will also be very good. Okay? See? Keywords, right? You can type here as well. Okay, so that's for cases. Now,
Mala, sorry. Earlier on I saw, right? It stated there's no judicial, no substantial judicial something. What does that mean? Mean that there's no decision made?
The law is not developed, not confirmed yet. So when sometimes when you see cases, right, you will see one with neutral judgment, sometimes with positive. So neutral means the case was just criticized once or twice. Positive means that's the current law, right? So these are like just to give students some indication. Negative, you'll see a red no entry sign. Negative judgment means the judgment has been overruled. All right. So let me just see whether I can show you. Let me see what case has been overruled. What wasn't Davies and Johnson? Let me see. Davies and Johnson. This is based on my memory lah. I just want to see how I can show you here. I'm saying positive neutral judicial consideration means this case law is a binding precedent. Okay? This one, no substantial judicial treatment means, as you can see, both is this is Chancery Division. This one went to before that. So you shouldn't read this. You must read this binding one. Okay? Let me see whether got negative and positive here. So instead of seeing this positive sign, if you see the red sign, like I said, negative judicial treatment means, just take note that judgment has been overruled. Okay? So don't bother reading that case. Okay, so that's for cases. Now let's move to journals here. Journals are published articles. You see, journal search, right? We'll click on journal search. Now, if you know the name of the journal, you type the article title here. If you know the name of the article, I don't have at the present any article to share with you. Maybe let's say, let's try my luck lah. Trial by jury. Then click search, or you can even search by the author's name. And then all this jury trial will come out now. Abolishing jury. Okay, when you see now abstract, do you see this term abstract here? Abstract means you do not have access to the entire article. All of this is abstract. Number 2 is also abstract. But look at number 3. This is a recent case. You see full text here? You're going to click on full text, the entire article will appear. Okay? So this is how or what you must do for your research essay. Go and research on the civil justice system, less O. That is where you're going to score your A. Not based on what is in Google. Google search anybody can do. This one only law students can do and must do. Now, do you know what's the meaning of legal research? Okay, guys? Also, one more last one. Do you see this current awareness? If let's say now you want to research on something new, let's say after a very long time, if I myself am going to research, I'm going to teach on an area of law, I'll usually go to current awareness, click on current awareness, and I'll write the topic. So there'll be a brief synopsis of that area of law. Then from there, I'll see are there any updates. Okay? So current awareness, maybe talk about jury trial. Okay? Then I'll go all content. All content. Search. Search. You can alter your content if you want to, okay? So So now you're searching on everything. Cases will come. If there's any proposal by Parliament, everything will come. Articles, everything will basically come. Everything got to do about June here. But of course, you can find your search as I mentioned earlier. You go back to current awareness. You see here, you can search on what do you actually want to, what do you want? Do you want current awareness of cases, on journal articles, or is it newspaper articles? Okay, these are just some topics to recommend on current awareness. Okay guys, all right? So please make good use. This is all part of your tuition fees of these links, not only for my subject now, for whatever subject that you are expected to do research in future, you can use this, okay? Now, you know your module guide, right? Just now I said that there are also links which have been shared, which will directly take you to the textbooks, right? You see here. I've already included all the link. I'm on your module guide. Page number is not here. This is page 8. You're going to click on this link, English Legal System. You will actually have access to Iliad and Queen. For tort law, for family law, you see, all this will give you, you can read the entire textbook. Yes, Jack? If you go back to the databases, you just click on L, LexisNexis will be there. I just showed you on Westlaw one because as I said, I'm biased, I miss Westlaw. Alright, you want to use LexisNexis also the same way, there are cases, articles and so on. This link here is on page 8, what you see on my screen now, page 8 of your module guide. Okay, you can just try to copy this link and put it in your Google bar, the textbook will appear, the full textbook. Okay, so you will not have any difficulty in terms of materials, you have ample materials, it's just about how to put all of these now within the word count you have. Okay guys, clear here? Just play around the website, then you'll discover a lot of things. Okay, so this pre-seminar activity, I thought that you could have used your legal search to find cases where precedent cases, or when you read the legal system textbook, there's a chapter on judicial precedent, you can find a lot of precedent cases. But it's okay, never mind, this is not so important. Now, we need to test our understanding from question 1 to question 6. Okay? Can I just give you all about 7 minutes? Find for me very brief answer for these 6 questions. We'll quickly discuss them and I have to finish case note with you today. So we'll spend maybe half an hour going through this, then I'll start off with case note. Okay? Now I'll give you about 7 to 10 minutes to find answers. All right, shall we discuss now? Okay. I know not enough time, but we'll just see. As we go on, however you can contribute in that way. Okay. So firstly, the question says briefly describe the development of common law. So common law means we're referring to common law system. So how do you think common law actually developed? Briefly describe. You just want to tell me a few points with regard to the development of common law. Anyone? Question 1. The common law developed from we start with the creation of the court, right? So the king's court was created to resolve dispute. Am I right? So the king created the court to resolve dispute. In the Middle Ages, common law tradition developed in England was used in British. Similar traditions implemented. Okay, so Constantine, your answer is to explain the differences between common law and civil law system. But we want to talk about the creation of the common law system, that means the development here. It began as customary law used in the king's court. Very good. So, Rizwan, that point that you presented will come just after I speak about the creation. Alright? Azira says derived from that. Very good, Azira. Correct also. So let's put that now. So this king's court here was created to resolve dispute, and in resolving disputes here, judges relied on customary laws. So this customary laws is where you can talk about trial by ordeal. Remember we spoke about trial by ordeal? That you need to walk on fire to prove innocence, hands will be tied and dumped into the river, right? So that's trial by ordeal here. And of course, from here, common law gradually developed. And how did common law gradually develop? Common law developed because trial by ordeal was abolished. So when it abolished, so judges began to develop legal principles at Westminster, and the other judges followed the laws and applied them. So that's where the system of precedent also developed. Correct? So system of precedent developed, new laws was created, and of course from there, common law was applied to all. So that's how the name common law came. So we'll stop the story here. Let's not talk about equity. Because if you're going to bring in equity, equity basically is the fall of common law, right? So this is how common law became very popular. So you want to also explain further, you can say that it became popular means to resolve disputes because they stopped going to the king. They all started to go to the court. Eventually, we have a structured and rigid system. Eventually, it resulted in this. Okay? Now let's move to question 2. What is the significance of the Judicature Act 1873 to 1875? Why is this act an important act? Courts can administer both common and equity, and then combine the courts. Very good. So we'll combine both Emilia and Lucas' answer. Judicature Act mandated the merger of common law and equity. Correct. Constantine's also right. Okay. So here, when it comes to the Judicature Act here, the Judicature Act basically merged both common law and equity. Okay, the King's Court and equity here. So it became one court system, and of course, equity can be applied in the King's Court. Okay, so that's the significance of the Judicature Acts 1873 to 1875. Of course, the other significance is it ended the conflict between equity and common law. The two conflict was resolved through this merger. Question 3. In what ways has equity contributed to the development of English law? So this question basically requires you to talk about the remedies and maxims. Can you give me some examples? Benefited from remedies, equity, complemented common law. Okay, so specific performance, injunctions, yes, those are correct, Constantine. Estoppel. Okay, so what we do now to answer this question 3, we break these cases, these answers into categories. So first contribution will be remedies. So injunction with a specific performance, rescission, right? These are all common law remedies. And then we also have maxims. Now, what are these maxims here? Maxims are basically principles, right? He who seeks equity, or he who comes to equity, must come with clean hands. Okay, so that's the meaning of equity basically, okay? The maxim here. Of course, then we also have promissory estoppel. Correct? So they've given us remedies. So till today, we can ask the courts to grant us either injunction, specific performance or decision, whichever is appropriate. And I hope you remember the case of DNC builders. Mr. and Mrs. Elise wanted to cheat the builders, right? So the court said, you did not come to equity with clean hands, we can't protect you. Okay, clear? This one? Very good, guys. Shows that you've got very, very good understanding. Number 4. Should common law judges be given the discretion not to follow precedent? Should common law judges have the discretion not to follow precedent? Basically, the question is asking you, should we allow common law precedent to depart from precedent? Oh, why in caps constantly? To ensure individual justice, discretion is demand, all recommendations are made to enhance. The first part I accept, but the part where you say about peculiarities, the manifestation cannot be covered by law, judicial discretion. So I'll take the answer, judicial discretion is necessary. That's one good point we had. So we're saying judicial discretion is required on a case-by-case basis. Oh, why? We can say cases must be decided on based on its own merit. Correct? So we want cases to be decided based on its own merit. Before precedent here, it can result in rigidity, because we keep following the same law, so rigid, and these can eventually result in injustice. For example, the case of Crown against R. So many years they had to apply this injustice law here. It took them so long to depart from the old principle because of the doctrine of precedent. Right? How many cases goes to the appeal court? Statistically, most cases go to the lower court compared to the appeal court. Sometimes, when the litigants have no money to appeal or send the cases to the court, they are not going to send the cases to the court. So, in these instances, we will say that this judicial discretion, I think is important. Okay, it's just we want to look at it from one side. Of course, there's always two sides of the coin. There are also advantages of following precedent. Okay, two more questions to go. Is judicial lawmaking necessary? Is judicial lawmaking necessary or not? Do you want the judges to have the powers to pass law, to legislate?
Not. Not, because the judge should not, by right, should not make laws. They should.
They should?
They should not. In my view, it's not.
In your view, it should not. You are not wrong, and the ladies are also not wrong. There are group who advocates for judicial lawmaking, there are who says no. So whatever school of thought that you belong to, like for example, both Emilia and Shin, they think that judges must develop law to fill in the gaps. That's a very good point. Filling the gaps is very important.
But that would mean the parliament must fill up any gap as soon as possible, not wait. And
it's a bit difficult, Jason. Parliament has got many other functions to do.
yeah, but that's their job. They're fit to do the job.
They're also paid to do many other things.
Yeah.
Alright? So when it comes to this judicial lawmaking here, I leave it to you. You can either say yes or you can no. You want to know what is my view? I will say, of course, judges must make law. I have been taught the common law system when I was a student. I teach the common law system, so I'm very passionate about the common law system. It's a very sophisticated system in comparison with the civil law system, but I still have high regard for the common law system and the judges, okay? So I'll vote for yes for judicial lawmaking. What will be...
Are you very sure that judges will make a mistake?
Who doesn't make mistake? Parliament also make mistake.
Yeah.
Right?
But if with one person in the whole parliament, the chance of making mistake is lesser.
It's a very good point. The very good point is, Jason's point is, Parliament will go through a proper study, debate, consultation before it
Yeah,
passes.
no, fight. But judges only, your chief judge will say yes, everybody will say yes.
Correct. I accept that argument. But my point is, when you have a case in front of you and there's a grey area in law, when there's a grey area in law, you can't tell to the litigants come back to the courts after 6 months.
Correct.
Right? So the judges will have to resolve the dispute. So while they resolve the dispute, that becomes precedent. So that's what we meant by filling the gaps. There's so many areas of laws which have been clarified by judges like that. Okay? So for that reason, I will say justice, okay, clarify the laws. So I'm not saying that you're wrong, Jason. So I did say your points are valid and accurate, but I personally prefer this school of thought. All right. So anyone who says no, because I'm a teacher, I'm a prefect, so I'll give you some reasons for no too. Okay, you can say that this is it is against separation of powers. That's what Jason mainly argued. Right? It is the function of Parliament to pass laws and judges to interpret. You can also say that, like what Jason also said, that Parliament would usually ensure that there is detailed scrutiny for passing the laws, unlike court where judges make decisions based on one fact. Okay, based on one fact, you want to change the law, we can say that can be a little bit drastic, but when you compare with Parliament, you know, all the consultations, opinions, and so on, okay? Loopholes cannot be detected till the precedent is exposed. You should not. That point is also accepted. So that'll come under justice, clarity, fairness, you know, all of that. So we have both. It's up to you to decide which school of thought you belong to. In fact, there are theories behind this also. For example, Professor Hart is a person who believes that judges do make law in England. Ronald Dworkin is another theorist. He's a jurist where they write about the philosophy behind law. Ronald Dworkin says that no, judges don't make law in England. They are merely declaring the pre-existing law. Okay, this is a very different debate. We can continue, maybe not now. Okay, last question. Why is the common law system in England described as contemporary? One short answer. Why is it contemporary? Common law is foundation in English law. Each of which reflected the. But why is it contemporary constantly? That's the question. Why is it modern? The flexibility. Jacqueline, how does the flexibility ensure that it is modern? Updated with times, yes. The word that I had in my mind is common law will consistent, will always evolve. So that's what Jack and Shin says. They just say it in different words. Will be updated with times because of courts and judges. That's what Jack mean by the flexibility there. The flexibility in the system allows the laws to change gradually with the society. Okay? So that's why it's contemporary. Although it's one of the oldest systems, but it has still survived many centuries. Okay? Okay. So those are all short questions. I'm very happy with your answers. It shows that you actually understand the common law system. Very, very good. Okay? Very, very good. Okay. We don't have time for activity 2. So what we will do basically, because activity two is based on these research cases, right? One day lah, when we have some pocket time in one of our classes, then we can revisit the questions that we didn't do, alright? So I thought activity one is more important. Now, what I want to do is I want to complete the last set of slides, which is case note. Okay, just hang in there. I know it's been a long day, just a little bit more time. Case note. Go back to lecture 1, 2, lecture slides, you'll find this case note. We're going to go through this now. Okay, all done, ready? Okay, what is this case note? Case note is basically just to teach you one of the components of legal research. Because if you look at your learning outcomes for this module requires you to prepare a case file for your litigant, right? For your client, pretending that you're going for litigation. So you have mooting and so on. So this case note this session will be very helpful to teach you how to read cases, how to prepare summary of judgments, okay? I think that as a law student, you cannot qualify as a law student, you should not read judgments. It's very important to read judgment, the primary source. Once you get the habit of reading judgment, you will not like to read textbooks. You'll always go to the judgment to find the answers because the textbook authors are merely writing about the cases in 1 or 2 paragraphs from their perspective. But if you go to the primary source, you will find a lot of information about the law, whether the ratio or the obiter itself. So that's the purpose of this session, to teach you how to prepare case note, how to identify the ratio of a case, and of course, how is a ratio different from a decision? A lot of students think that ratio and decision is same, but they're actually very, very different. Okay, so let me start by explaining to you what is step 1. Step 1 is you must know what is the case that you want to prepare a summary. So why do we call this case note? Case note means summary of the case. So how do you summarize the law? Judgments can be very long, right? First step is, of course, identify which case you want to summarize. Download the entire judgment first. How to search cases, how to find cases, we went through earlier. Either by case name or citation. Citation is the best because there could be so many Donoghue and Stevenson, right? Okay, but thank God lah, it was the correct case that we found earlier. So this is a very easy step. Second step now is, this one is the diagram to show you. This is Westlaw this first image is Westlaw. The second image here is Bailey, British and Irish Legal Information Institute. You can actually do a Google search. Guess what? All the cases are free here. And they are available on Google. Okay? Now, once you download the judgment, reading the judgment is compulsory. You cannot prepare a summary if you don't read the entire judgment. First page to the last page, you have to read it. Okay? Step 3 is what I'm going to focus now. Now that you've read the judgment, how to prepare a case note. So, before we move to step 2, let's talk about before we move to step 3, I want to explain the transition between step 2 to step 1. So when I say you need to read judgment, how do you read judgment? Can you tell me how do you read judgment? Should you just read and read and read and read? What must you do while you read? Tell me, what must you do?
Highlight,
A note.
like
Alright, you have to do that. You know why? You're not going to read your judgment in one day. So for example, okay, just showing you, this is an article that I have. You see, civil justice, right? in this first page, I only find this point to be important. So you highlight the point. Then sometimes it's not about highlighting, because if highlight, you have to come back and read it again. You're going to put a side note like this. You see or not? So if let's say today you read 3 pages, tomorrow you want to continue, right? Quickly just refresh on the third 3 pages, just read your side notes. So in that context, this is what we need to do, or this is how you read them. Okay? You can print them hard copy. Printing hard copy, I think, is easy for most of us, right? Then, now we want to prepare your case. So let's talk about the preparation here. So the first preparation, when you prepare a summary of a case, when you want to present a case, you in your document, please write the name of the case and the citation. I'm teaching you officially how to prepare a case now. Case name and citation. Okay? And then you must write the court in which the case was heard and who are the judges. So this is like maybe on the first page. Because if you give me your case note, I need to know which case is it, which court it went to, who are the judges, right? These are all formalities. Identify parties means who's the claimant, who's the defendant. If it goes to the appeal court, you need to identify who's appellant and who's the respondent. A, B, C, D, very easy. Now, from D onwards, it's where the real work starts. Material facts must be summed up. What is the differences between facts and material facts? Okay. Listen to what I'm going to present, and then I will ask you what is the material facts. James woke up at 4 a.m. James watched TV for half an hour. James took shower. James wore his clothes, walked to the car park, took his bike, and he drove to Jurong McDonald's drive-thru, had his breakfast, and he drove to Orchard ABC Bank. And at Orchard ABC Bank, he took his gun and he decided to shoot the security guard. He couldn't enter the bank, so he walked past the building. He found a stick. He broke the glass door, entered, took the money, walked out, went to JB. Okay? This is what happened. The prosecution will tell this to the judge. All the details. You are the judge. Which part of the facts is important to decide is James guilty or not? Is waking up 4 o'clock in the morning important to decide the verdict? Yes or no? Not important, right? Very good. Watching TV, is it important? Taking shower, going to McDonald's, is it important? Shooting the security guard, is that important? Walking to find the stick, is that important? Evidence, right? Very good. Breaking the door, important. Taking the money, going jail, important. Now you know what are the material facts. Material facts are relied by the judges to decide the outcome of the case. So you must know, when you read facts, they are very lengthy sometimes. So you must know how to find the important facts related to the issue. Okay? So you must briefly write in your case note the material facts. Then you move to legal issues. What are legal issues? Legal issues is, why did this case go to the court? So based on my James case, prosecution is going to charge him for murder. Prosecution is going to charge him for robbery. Right? So that's the legal issues. The legal issue is he guilty of murder? Is he guilty of robbery here? So if it's an appeal court, if it went to the Court of Appeal or Supreme Court, then you need to see what are the grounds of appeal. And you know what, guys? Especially when cases go to the appeal court, in the judgment, the courts will write, this case has come to the court for the following reasons. Judges these days, they write judgments so structured and very clear, not like those days. 1940s, 50s, 60s judgments are very difficult. Nowadays, because judges know that students are reading all these, right? So they prepare very clear form. Procedural history. If it's in appeal court, they will tell you what is the lower court's decision. They will say, before this case came to my court, it was decided by the trial judge, the district judge imposed 2 weeks imprisonment. So procedural history means before this case came to the court, which court it went to, what is the decision there. That's something you must write briefly as well. So now do you see you're already establishing a case. So when somebody reads this summary that you prepare, they don't need to read the judgment because you're giving them all the important information they need to know. Okay? And remember, you cannot be so elaborate. Arguments must be concise. Now, I think these legal issues I typed twice here. So your legal issues, I'm just going to ignore the G. Now, look at HIJ here, decision, ratio, and summary. Decision of the case now, if this case went to the Court of Appeal, what is the Court of Appeal? Did they accept the appeal or did they reject the appeal? So, for example, you can say, the Court of Appeal rejected James' appeal. The Court of Appeal upheld the district court's decision by sentencing James to 12 years imprisonment. Write down the decision. The decision is the final outcome. So the decision must be short, 1 or 2 lines only. But the ratio will be a little bit more elaborated. So what is the meaning of ratio? Ratio means the laws which will apply to the case. Ratio means laws applied to the case to conclude its case. So in my James case, you tell me what are the laws that I'm going to apply? Section 299, Section 300 of the Penal Code. Right? Because these are all, this is murder, homicide. So when the judge speaks about Section 299, Section 300, that law becomes the binding precedent. So if the Court of Appeal now made a clarification about the test for intention, speaking about specific intention is required, he wrote it in his judgment. And that law he has applied to his facts, right? So that particular law now will be binding on all future courts. So it is the ratio which is binding, not the facts, not the legal issue. That's why the ratio of a case is so important, because this is where the judge is clarifying what exactly is the law that I will apply in my case, and I want future courts to apply this as well. Okay? So judges will not tell you which is the ratio. This is something that you have to read in the judgment, and you need to see, oh, these are all the laws that I've applied. In this James case, if the courts decided to discuss about assisted suicide, all right, crime rates in Singapore, all of that is not relevant to James' sentencing, right? That will be known as the obiter. So obiter is basically by the way statements, okay? Non-binding laws. I'm talking about some other laws which are not related to this case, but I still want to talk about it. That is known as obiter dictum. Is it like the recent case where the interpretation of common law intention was widened? Correct. So that becomes the ratio which is widened basically. Alright? So usually when cases go to this appeal court, you need to be very careful because they are trying to create new laws. Like in the case of Donahue and Stevenson, they created the new law, the neighborhood principle, right? That's the ratio. Then, finally, if you've got 5 judges, you've got 3 judges, you write down the name of judges and briefly summarize what did they say to arrive at the decision. Lord Ho. These are all his arguments. Just sum up his arguments, just take the important points and put it as a summary. Okay? In some universities, these notes are in some university, like my to prepare case note, but it was just a homework only, not part of assessment. Ratio the opposite. Yes, Amelia. So ratio is the binding part. So obiter is not binding. Okay. So here, remember material facts. As I said, you must not summarize the facts. Just take the important facts. Then legal issues, you must state the legal issues. You see, I've given you one example here. I took the case of Walker at the Commission Against Police Metropolis. In paragraph 12, this is an abstract of the judgment. These then are what I call the comparatively narrow issues which have survived to this appeal. They can be expressed as follows. So this is what I said earlier. The judges will clearly write down the appeals these the issues. So when you read the judgment, you will know what the issues are. Okay? Procedural history, same from the case of Walker. I took an abstract of the judgment. On the 3 issues, the judge's findings were follows. What are the 3 issues? These 3 issues. The judge's findings, which judges are we talking about? The courts before this. Alright? So these are the court's outcome here. So you can get the procedural history. You don't have to go and read the judgment before that. In this present judgment, they will mention. Then these days judges, they have this heading conclusion. You see, in some, I would allow Mr. Walker's appeal. This is decision. This is not the ratio. He's just saying that I'm allowing the appeal. He gives a brief reason here. Ratio is everywhere in the judgment, so I couldn't put like an abstract here. So ratio is where whenever there's discussion of law, whenever there's an interpretation and an explanation of law, that becomes the ratio basically. So when I say summarize the judgment, law students must summarize both assenting and dissenting. Assenting and dissenting means assenting is the majority, dissenting is the minority's decision base. Okay? So next time, if your lawyer asks you to do research on cases, you can follow this approach. You can follow this approach. It will be very easy for you to present your case. So now, if you look at your seminar 2, what is the homework given to you? The homework for seminar 2 is basically, you are supposed to read the case of Walker. That means use your legal research to download the judgment, okay, and answer the following questions. But, of course, we don't have the time to go through this activity here, okay? So what I'm going to do, what do you think I'll do with you? Did you all read the judgment or not? Shin, did you read? So good. So proud of you, Shin.
Speed reading.
Okay. Tell me the name of judges.
You're talking about Donahue and Stevenson, right?
No, I'm talking about the case of.
Oh, you know. Oh, sorry.
Your seminar question.
Oh, no, I read the case note, which was.
Which one?
Oh, okay. No, I must have read the wrong one. Because on your case note, it says example Donahue and Stevenson. So I went to read Donahue and Stevenson.
Right there, but you didn't open the seminar.
Yeah.
Okay. And
yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So what I did was I prepared a case note for you all. Wait, let me just upload this on my Google Drive, then I can share. Just to give you a feel, this is something that you can read up. You can have a look on your own. Okay, click onto the link, please. Okay, this judgment is about Walker. I think it's about 20 over pages, 20 or 40 over pages. I can't remember. Okay, So this is what I meant. Let me take you through. See the name of the case here, the name of the court, the name of the judges here. Okay? Material facts, I've simplified it. Procedural history, then the legal issues. The decision of the court, then the Sir Bernard Riggs in his judgment. So I'm summarizing his judgment. His judgment is explaining about the issues that he had, about factual issues, and then the false imprisonment. You see, he spoke about this law. This Colin and Wilcock is the ratio of the case. He has affirmed the definition of assault, battery, false imprisonment according to the case of Colin and Wilcock. So he affirmed the ratio, this becomes the ratio, and we apply this to the facts. Okay? So these laws is something that he applied to the facts. Then, if you see, I just explain the summary here, but of course all of these are very point forms here. The other issue is the reaction reasonable and proportional? Was it a valid arrest? So the discussion of the law, the clarification of the law, all of this is the ratio. Okay? So now when you look at a judgment, which is so wordy, compared to this case note, of course when you prepare case note, it's easier to make reference. So now you can ask me, so for my civil justice research essay, do I need to prepare case note? No, you don't have to. You don't have the time to do that. Because the civil justice is about the system, right? It's not about substantive law. Did you notice that your research essay is about the law, the LESPO, and the problems that we have with the system? We're going to talk about this civil justice system in my next class. Okay, so in my next class, lecture 3, we got 3 set of slides. Introduction to civil justice, pre-post-Wolf reform, legal aid. Like the ADR part, all I won't give so much importance because we've studied about ADR before, and I will try to focus more about legal aid. So some areas I won't emphasize a lot because of the time challenge, but as you can see, I try to focus a lot on this legal aid here. So the introduction to civil justice, I'll try to do it quick. The Wolf reform is very important for me to establish my case. What is the case that I need to establish? What has resulted to this legal aid is because of the Wolf reform. So number 2 and number 3 will spend time. Okay? After this class, you will be able to conduct independent research on the civil justice system, and you can start preparing for your formative exam. Okay? So this is what we will be doing in our next class. You can do your pre-reading. There's some additional materials given here. You see? The Jackson overview, Jackson reform, all this Jackson thing, all is relevant to LESPO. Because LESPO reform is because of Jackson review. Okay, this legal aid here, you see there are some cases, the future of legal aid. I actually took time to download all of this from Westlaw for you. Okay, just in case if some of you don't want to go to Access, I'm giving it to you. So you can over and above all of, that's why if you look at all these reforms, they are quite recent reforms. Alright, so they are recent reforms like 2021 because I just recently downloaded all of this. But of course there were plenty, I had to stop, right? Because I need to allow you to do independent research as well. So you have to, reading this additional materials is mandatory. So when I say reading these materials are mandatory because it will allow you to do better how you project. Like I said, you will just have so much of information, you will eventually have, you'll find that it's so difficult to write all of this within the limited word count. Okay, that's a good problem. As opposed to not knowing what to write, that's a bad problem. Okay? Do you all have any questions that you would like to ask me for today's class? So, to wrap up what we did today, I completed the legal system lectures and then I completed case note lectures. So, lectures wise, we've completed everything. Seminar question, we did seminar 1, no time for seminar 2, so I gave you the sample. And of course, most importantly, I taught you how to use the online library to do legal research. I also clarified about the assessment date. Take note of what's been uploaded here. It is the 12th September will be for the skeleton argument. Your formative is only for your research essay, which is due 19 August. Okay? All on 22nd October, all 4 components must be merged, upload in one file. Okay? Alright? If you have any question, you can always ask me. Yes, Shin?
I think you were supposed to share with us the scholar referencing for cohort 12 because cohort 11 has it.
Let me give it to you now itself. I'm just going to upload this on my Google Drive and then I'll share it with you. That is something that completely forgot. Next line. So, let's see. So I will give you the extended version. I'll show you what I'm going to upload it into. This is 61 pages. It's very, very detailed. Okay? It's very detailed. It's very good. I'll tell you why is it good. Always remember, excess information is good. Can you just share it in your class WhatsApp group also? Okay, so you'll have this, right? So easy. Citation and footnotes, citing cases. Go to page 3. They actually give you example here. Page 3. You see here? Imagine if this is in your answer. This grey box is, let's say this is your answer. You must write your cases, you see? Phipps, look at the third line. Phipps and Boardman. It has to be italic. And then your footnote there. And then you see, you go to the next page, 31. You must write the year and the citation. So I like this one. Although it's 61 pages, don't be intimidated. It's so detailed, it's so good. So this is how you follow for cases. You want to cite for legislations, they've given you samples here as well. You want to find for proposals, articles, newspapers, all samples are given here. Articles, you see? Hard copy journals, working papers, textbooks. Just go through this example. It will be quite easy. Okay? Just please share it with your rest of your classmates. I mean in the WhatsApp. Did I miss anything else? Nope, right? Okay, so now I'm going to call out your name. Please let me know if you're present. Just want to make sure box to the purpose. Number 1, Yoshini is not here. Okay. Katrina? Not here. Constantine?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Rajaraman? Brendan? Brendan not here.
Present, madam.
And then Ku Xia Yo?
Present.
Okay. Tristan Low?
Present.
Shankari? Still at work, Shankari?
Present, no, back home already.
Good. Edison?
Yeah.
Low Yishan, Lowyshan. Not here. Jaslyn?
I'm here.
Then Low Yisheng is here.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, welcome. Prem is here. Lucas is here. Lo Tiang is here.
Present. Yeah, present.
Lee Jinling is here. Abu Lim, are you here?
Yeah, miss.
Quiet today. Okay. And then Sadiq, what about you? Muhammad Sadiq. Not here. We come in, Andrew is here, Emilia is here, Noel Michael. Not here. Okay, Ivan is here. Kushbu.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, very good. And then Jocelyn.
Present, thank you.
Azira is here. Shamila is here. Mervin is here.
Yeah, present.
Then Zo Ji Chun.
Present.
That's okay, Frankie. Then Sophia.
Yeah.
Okay, Jason here. Shin is here. Ahmed is here. Jasmine here. Rizwan here. Okay. Okay, sure, Constantine. Okay, so 6 absentees. We have Noel Michael Ibrahim, Sadiq, Lo Yishan, Brendan, and Kara, Katrina, and Noshini absent, right? Okay, yes, I've marked your attendance. If you have questions, you can stay back and ask me. Otherwise, the rest of you, I'll see you all next week. Azira, I need to speak. Can you just stay back? Are you rushing back, Azira?
No, I'm good.
Thank you. All right, the rest of you all, I'll see you all in the next class next week, right? All right, good night, bye.